whenever they are elevated to the level of transcendental knowledge, all such activities enter into the spiritual platform. Depending on differences in consciousness, sacrificial activities are sometimes called karma kanda, fruitive activities, and sometimes called jnana kanda, knowledge in pursuit of truth. It is better when the end is knowledge. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namo Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaiham Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Utapada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Saji Visakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisavanusutte Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you for joining this wonderful Bhagavad Gita evening Sangha. And today, what an auspicious day to talk about this verse. Today is the auspicious appearance day of Gadadhar Pandit. And Gadadhar Pandit, as you know, exhibited the sacrifice of knowledge. And what a day to pick this verse where the appearance day of Gadadhar Pandit is being celebrated all around the world. And we are talking about knowledge sacrifice or sacrificing knowledge. And here, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna a couple of things. Krishna is saying dravya. Dravya means material things. And then Krishna is also referring to jnana here. And he's saying, in comparison to sacrificing dravya or material things, and in comparison to sacrificing material things like dravya, in the form of a sacrifice, in the form of giving it away, if you give away knowledge, it is better, it is much superior. And there are some key words right here, right in front of you. You all could understand. Dravya is material, jnana is knowledge, and the superior part is very clear in this. And there Krishna is using akhilam in totality. And so these are some of the key words we're going to discuss today as to why giving our knowledge is much more superior than giving away material things. And why is Krishna saying this? And why in the series of sacrifices, for the last 1.5 weeks, we have been bombarded with this sacrifice. Somebody is trying to sacrifice something, and then Krishna is explaining, and eventually at the end, this is actually the end of the verses, which basically talks about sacrifice, and Krishna is ending here. So the grand finale of sacrifices today, where Krishna is explaining that the end of sacrifice culminates with the sacrifice of knowledge or transcendental knowledge, as Srila Prabhupada is transcribing and is translating here. All sacrifice of work culminates in transcendental knowledge. And there, we're going to discuss why is Krishna saying this at that point in time. And we'll just give a little bit background so that we'll put a context around why Krishna is saying, so that we all go back home with a clear understanding as to why transcendental knowledge is so much superior than everything else. So in order to sacrifice something, you need to possess it, right? So whenever we talk about, giving out something, you need to first possess it. So you need to have knowledge to sacrifice knowledge. And that is where acquisition of knowledge is very important. Unless you acquire knowledge, you cannot sacrifice. So you have nothing to sacrifice if you don't acquire transcendental knowledge. And that is the key, because every time there is a expression of sacrifice, 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 but unless you have that, unless you possess that, you can't give it away. And that's why Krishna always says, the devotee who brings my dear devotees to me is very dear to me. And he mentions it very in many different places. So the devotee who always brings his devotees who have basically left the place, or they have basically gone astray, if they bring those devotees to me, he is most dear to me. And how does he do that? By just expressing the form of transcendental knowledge. So without much ado, let's discuss what are the sacrifices we have talked about in the last 1 week. We'll just go quickly because this is something which might ring a bell to you. If Krishna started talking about sacrifice in this context, in this series of sacrifices, and he's actually on a serial list of verses where he's constantly talking to Arjuna about sacrifice. In 4.25, he talked about fire sacrifice, and we heard that class very nicely about the importance of fire sacrifice. Then in 26, 7 verses back, Krishna talks about sacrificing the hearing process and offer objects of senses. So what do you mean by hearing sacrifice? That means you have to inculcate that habit of hearing, so that by hearing you will enrich yourself, and then you can afford to sacrifice that. And in 27, Krishna talks about offering the life breath, which is the prana vayu. And there, whenever we do some offering, it's basically the vayu within our body which digests all our food. And there is the apana vayu which goes downwards, vyana vayu which acts to shrink and expand, samana vayu adjusts equilibrium, and udana vayu which goes upwards. And we discussed about that. And then in 4.28, when we had a long conversation till 8:30, we discussed about Ashtanga Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga method of eightfold mystic sacrifice of Ashtanga Yoga. And then 4.29, Krishna spoke about how to remain in trance, how to practice by offering movement of this breath, And then in once again in 4.30, Krishna spoke about sacrificing has to be done in order to cleanse sinful reactions, and that is where an experiment was done in University of Philadelphia. People who gave things away to others were very happy, or much happier than people who held on to it. There's a nice research which was done where the teacher gave away $20 to the class of 20, and after 3 hours they all came back, and the teacher analyzed the fact that the students who gave away money to others, this $20 to others, or used in purpose of giving away others, or sacrificed their personal benefit, and instead they helped others, they were much happier. So that's where Krishna in 4.30 says sacrifice helps cleanse the sinful reactions from us. And 4.31, we all discussed about without sacrifice one can never live happily, which is essentially the University of Pennsylvania use case I was trying to give a minute back. And in 4.32, sacrifices are recommended in Vedas. And what does Veda mean? Veda means knowledge. So and that is where Krishna is dovetailing gradually, and he's talking about Vedas. And now in 4.33, Krishna is going into knowledge. Veda means knowledge, and now he's talking about why sacrificing knowledge is more important than any of this we have heard. So this is the pinnacle of the sacrifice you can think about, sacrificing knowledge. So with that, what is sacrifice? And Krishna in various different places mentions in Yagyartha karmano natra lokayam karma bandhana. That means work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. And we touched on verse chapter 3, verse 9. Otherwise, anything you do without sacrificing to the Supreme, there is a bondage. And there we talked about how we have this, caustic assets with us. By trying to give away and try to do something for others, we gain pious credits and we get rid of some of the anarthas. So if we do not give, because Vishnu is the proprietor of this entire place, we are eating from the plants, we are using this cosmic creation which was created by them, which we heard in Canto 2 and Canto 3 as well, now with Vidurji talking to Maitreya Muni, that that rahasya is happening right now in the mornings in our Srimad Bhagavatam class. As to person who has created this cosmic manifestation, we are using all the services, but we are not paying any taxes to them. However, we are paying a lot of tax to Uncle Sam. And that is where in 3.9, Krishna is referring to the importance of sacrifice. And also in chapter 15, Krishna says, Mama Vainso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. That means all these living entities in the conditioned world are my internal fragmental parts. And he also uses the word Aham Bija Prajapita in other places. So what that means is we are part and parcel of someone, and we are basically detached from him, but we have the soul and super soul in our heart, but we have ceased to recognize him, and we are now we're trying to enjoy without him, and that is where we have lost him, and that is where we have to give it back to him in the form of love and expression. So there are some references on this which might be very interest to you. And what is sacrificing knowledge? So once upon a time, when a person was going into a class was going on, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was taking the class, and a person went and looked at the deities for 15 minutes. And then when he came back, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked him, what were you looking? What were you seeing in the deity? Were they just, eye exercises for you in the form of, you're looking here and there without truly seeing the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord? Lord is present in that form. Without that knowledge, are you seeing? And he kind of slightly chastised that devotee. So seeing deity with knowledge is spiritual, but without knowledge, seeing deity is mechanical. You will basically see, many people in India, they do not understand the sublime relationship between Purna Purushottam Krishna and Radharani. And there are many people who do not understand, haven't seen Lord Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra in their life, in this unique form. They cannot just understand how Lord, in this expression of love, expression for love for his devotees, he could transcend and he could go in a trance and he could shrink. People can't recognize. And people cannot also recognize the Krishna Varnam Tusa Krishna, Gaur Nitai. And when they see without that elemental knowledge of what this tent deities carry, it's all mechanical. If we have the knowledge as to how Purna Purushottam Sri Krishna and Radharani used to go with Gopi Bhav and go and start, and how Mother Radharani used to do devotional service, and how Lord Jagannath, with awesome mercy, came to glance at us with his wonderful eyes, and the Yuga Dharmi, the Yuga Avatar, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we cannot really appreciate their form. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had very nicely chastised this person, that without seeing deity without the true knowledge is just pure mechanical. You are seeing some idols as they carry, as they mention in parts of India, but they are truly deities who have life impregnated on them. So getting real knowledge is actually opening the vision. So in Bhagavad Gita, there is this wonderful verse where without knowledge we are in darkness, okay? And when we are in ignorance, we cannot make good judgments. That's why nowadays you hear things like there is too much of information now, of course, but they are pure information. They are not really knowledge. So with when you are born with ignorance, then then with this transcendental knowledge, it acts like a weapon. And here Krishna uses the word jnana asina tamana. That means asina is weapon and jnana is knowledge. So jnana is like a knowledge which can cut the ignorance which is situated in the heart. Without that, it's very difficult, not just in the spiritual uh, domain, but that will be a challenge in all the domains in our day-to-day life, in our material life as well. So the transcendental knowledge, which is exactly what Krishna is talking about, is can only cut the ignorance we have. We may be having big degrees, but if we haven't understood who we are and who we have come from, that knowledge is useless. And that is where sacrificing knowledge is very important, because unless we acquire knowledge, we cannot sacrifice. And by sacrificing knowledge, we are helping to cut through these weapons, this aspect of ignorance many people have. And we have a lot of work to do, because there is not many people who have really bought into this concept of Krishna consciousness. So we have a lot of work in hands. And these are some of the primary things, and Krishna has explained it in many places in Bhagavad Gita. And these are some of the things I have taken to really prove the fact that sacrificing knowledge is much more relevant than sacrificing anything else. But that doesn't mean others are less important in the form of, those things has to be done. You have to do fire sacrifices. We have to do Ashtanga yoga, probably the first four of the eight, where we have to maintain our body, which is nothing but a temple. So, so, so the question is, we have this vision. The vision has to be opened up, right? So we acquire knowledge, and that acquisition of knowledge gives us that importance or that impetus on us to open up the vision. A person who is knowledgeable, he tends to see things in 360-degree, right? That's what one of the common themes you may have seen. So if we do not have the transcendental knowledge, our vision will not open up. And our acharyas have said, in order to open the vision, the first thing we have to do is hear. Unless we hear, unless we do the hearing through the ear, when you're hearing, you're doing too many things. You're thinking about what you have heard. You're basically analyzing. You're trying to put things into perspective. And after you're sealed in with the knowledge acquisition, then when you're trying to react by doing something A and B, then your vision opens up. So it starts with Shravanam. And Kirtanam here is referring to the devotional service done by chanting. And we'll get to it as to why chanting is very critical in this exercise of transcendental knowledge. And that is where we have to think about some of the key content we are going to hear later, is the difference between information, knowledge, and realization. And that is exactly why chanting is very important. So we'll get there. Stay with that thought for the moment. Okay. So some of the examples of vision when we talk about, right? Why vision is important? Why this vision is transcending from transcendental knowledge and is really helping us do different things. So once upon a time, a person, his car broke down and driver was looking for help. So a person, he came and offered help, that he can help solve the car breaking down issue, for a little fee. So he opened the hood and tried to examine. And after examining, what he did, he took a hammer and he banged in one place, and then he thought something and then banged in another place, and then banged three more places, and the car started. He did a deep analysis. And when the driver asked how much the fees are, he said it's $100. And the driver said, "You just banged with a hammer in 5 different places. Why are you asking for $100?" And that is when the person said, "To bang with a hammer is actually $10, but to identify why I banged at certain places after certain time, that is 90%." So there is a difference between trying to execute the knowledge or apply the knowledge in the right sense, and then a person who has ignorant about fixing the car. So based on some movement of the fuel inside the car, he recognized that it's probably not going through properly, so he banged in multiple places so that he kind of opened the internals, or whatever the case may be. But the point here is knowledge in this context is so important in our lives. In every phase of our day-to-day life, knowledge is very, very important. So, and with the knowledge, the vision opens up. And that is where we'll take the second example. The second example is Pururava and Urvashi. I don't know if you may have heard this, but Pururava and Urvashi, they were madly in love with each other. And he was the founder of lunar dynasty, and Urvashi fell in love with each other. And Pururava asked her to become his wife. She agreed on some condition. We'll not get into those conditions in this today, but we'll talk about something very significant to our discussion here. So Pururava agreed to the condition, and they lived happily. But when Urvashi left the heaven, Indra was very unhappy, and he created circumstances where the condition could be broken, and such thing happened, and Urvashi, that condition was broken, and they broke up, and Urvashi left. So now Pururava, knowing that Urvashi left, and went and did some penance. And when he did the penance, Vishnu appeared actually, and was very happy with Pururava and asked, "What can I do for you?" And Pururava, who was madly in love with Urvashi, said, "I want to go back to the same planet where Urvashi is so that I can, interact with her and we can live happily." And Vishnu said yes. But think about the situation. Vishnu was there right in front of him. He asked for an open boon. But Pururava's vision was so altered that he couldn't think of going back to Godhead. He couldn't think of liberation. He could not think of some of the higher taste a person would have. And he asked for trying to live with Urvashi. Just the sheer thought process where the vision from transcendental knowledge is very critical. So in these two examples, you see how the knowledge and the vision is really helping or not helping the subject in this case. So I think by now it's very clear that without transcendental knowledge, we can't get the vision with which we are going to react or respond. So what are the goals of applying the vision? So we started with knowledge, then we discussed a little bit about vision, which the transcendental brings to us as seekers of spiritual sadhana path. And then how to apply this? What is the goal actually? So we have transcendental knowledge, we have the vision. Now what is our goal? Is knowledge acquisition a mundane thing which should be done to really get material benefit, or the knowledge acquisition should be done with something else in mind? So let's take another example. So here, Max Muller, he was actually a German, but he studied in Britain. And when British were ruling India, they actually hired Max Muller to do some studies on it in Sanskrit, on Indian spirituality. Actually, Max Muller learned about the Indian spiritual system very well. He learned Sanskrit. He learned a lot of internal things. But the intent with which he wanted to do the work is to interpret scriptures that India, and by doing that, Indians can be manipulated. His intent was to do deep research as to why are these scriptures, why are these old methods of binding people together is so important for India. So he knows more about this, the spiritual concepts than probably all of you put together, because he understood uh, it after deep studies. But is that the goal we should have? No, actually, our goal should be to recognize the constitutional position of the Supreme and use the knowledge in the right way, not in a conditional way, like how uh, Max Muller used in this case. So, in our Krishna consciousness, our goal is to acquire knowledge with an intent so that we can apply it by doing some devotional service. By doing devotional service, we will get the faith, we will get the love, we'll get that element of experience. See, this Krishna consciousness has to be experienced. It's not a theory, it is an application. Srila Prabhupada said, I have this process, just use this, apply it in your lives, and see if it benefits. It must benefit. So our intent is not to conditionally be knowledgeable. Our goal of applying the vision of knowledge is to do devotional service so that we can judgment, we can use our judgment by taking tenets from the scriptures so that we can apply the scriptural knowledge we have done, never to tell lies, never to disrespect others. These are the things we have learned from the scriptures. So apply in the right way. Our goal has to be not apply just by acquiring knowledge and trying to find some hooks by which we can challenge it. Our intent has to be in the method of devotional service where we have to follow this properly with submissiveness and apply it with the intent so that we get probably goosebumps on the day of festivals, right? Or on the day of Rath Yatra, when people are jumping, taking Lord of the Universe around, get experience that. Our intent is actually that. Our goal of applying the vision is to have that feeling. And that's why we are basically waking up in the morning and trying to understand. So our goal is not the same as others. And that is where Krishna says it's not very easy to understand him actually. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyante. That means there are people who can acquire knowledge about him, but the spirit of getting the knowledge and applying it in the right sense, which is essentially devotional service in the mode of surrender. In this example, Max Muller, he didn't surrender actually. He just understood it so that he could apply. But our intent is very much different. Our intent is not to use the knowledge for material gains, but our acquisition of knowledge is motivated in trying to do devotional service by which we can get bliss. We can get personal bliss. It's very important. We can get that goosebumps I was referring to, or we can get that shraddha, or we can get that love for Godhead. That's exactly what our intent is. So our goal is very different. So we spoke from transcendental knowledge to vision to our goal, where our goal has to be purposeful, knowledge acquisition, not for material gains, but for devotional service. So, so what is the difference between knowledge and realization? So knowledge in this context is gyan, right? Krishna is using the word gyan, but realization is vigyan. That means we have understood it, and we have. So it's 7:45. So we have to recognize that why sacrifices Krishna is saying is so relevant. If I may use if I make it take 5 or 10 more minutes, is that okay, Prabhu?
Absolutely, Guruji. Please go ahead.
So, so when in Naimisharanya, the saints were hearing Krishna Katha from Sutta Goswami, they were saying, the sacrifices we are doing so far with all this fire and ghee, they are like dhuma. You see this? They are like dhuma. That means they have made our, with the sacrificial fire which is burning, our bodies have become black because all these fumes are coming and our bodies have become black. The saints are telling Sutta Goswami in Namisharana when they are really together and they're trying to hear Krishna Katha. And the saints are saying, but by Sutta Goswami, you explaining about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda, we are taking nectar. Is and there Govinda Pada Savam Madhu. That means we're getting nectar, Madhu, by hearing your Katha where you are explaining about Govinda. So here the saints of Naimisharana are saying just by putting ghees onto fire is actually making us black. Dhuma, making us black. We're not really getting the bliss. But by hearing Krishna Katha from you, Sutta Goswami, we are taking the nectar from the lotus feet of Govinda. Very profound, very profound. So, so similar to this, Krishna in the beginning has said, whatever dravya you end up giving to me, or whatever things, whatever Astanga yoga or anything you want to offer to me, of all of that, if you can do knowledge sacrifice, that is the topmost. To do knowledge sacrifice, you need to acquire it first, and then you have to give it away. And the proof is in eating the pudding, and the saints in Naimisharana are confirming it to Sutta Goswami thousands of years ago on this topic from this beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam verse. So, if you think about it, many people know more about Krishna than more or less all of us put together. They know a lot about Krishna, but they don't experience Krishna. They don't feel Lord Jagannath, or they don't have any sense of surrender to Gauranga because they don't want to do devotional service. So, our intent, which we started with knowledge acquisition, then morphed into vision, then we talked about goals. But the fourth thing, which is so critical, is to realize Krishna in the form of feeling, in the in the aspect of surrendering, and that can only happen by devotional service. So just by doing, ghee burning on the fire, as Naimisharana saints are confirming, is not going to help. We have to have that mood of transcendental knowledge acquisition with the right vision, with the right goal, and then we will start experiencing, feeling, because we start surrendering to the Supreme. So jnana is knowledge, realization is vijnana. So we have to have this process of filtering by which we culminate into devotional service from vision goal into a realization path where we end up doing devotional service, where we experience the Supreme. Right? What Prabhupada said, I had this process, just follow it, you'll experience it, you'll go back to Godhead right in this life. You don't have to do multiple lives. So I'm going to end, but before ending, I just wanted to give the application of the sacrifice of knowledge or knowledge sacrifice. So as you can see on the right, you see Gadadhar Pandit. He is actually sacrificing knowledge to many people by many devotees by reciting and explaining about Srimad Bhagavatam. And on the left, you see Tota Gopinath Dham in Jagannath Puri, uh, where uh, where the Tota Gopinath deity appeared after uh, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in that area dug from the ground and excavated a deity of Krishna and named Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, named the deity Nimai. And when he was trying to bring the deity up, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Nimai used to fondly call out to Gadai to come. Gadai means Gadadhar Pandit, to come and see the deity of Krishna. And that Krishna deity is still there in Tota Gopinath temple, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu excavated from the ground near the Tota Gopinath temple. And in this temple, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu named this deity Gopinath. And as this place was in a mango forest, which is called Tota in, in the language, is called Tota Gopinath. And he entrusted, Nimai entrusted Gadai to take care of um, Tota Gopinath deity until the end. Gadadhar Pandit, who is fondly called as Gadai by Nimai or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is was taking care of the deities. Till then, there are many pastimes. But here, on the context of knowledge sacrifice, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, and Gadai or Gadadhar Pandit, whose appearance day is today, is Srimati Radharani. In the mode of Srimati Radharani, he is actually uh, giving Srimad Bhagavatam Katha to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in is Krishna himself, but is hearing about Krishna from Srimati Radharani, who is Gadadhar Pandit in this context, and the mood in which they are hearing is significant. So in this on this topic of knowledge sacrifice, see, Gadadhar Pandit is giving knowledge by speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the veranda of Tota Gopinath temple in Jagannath Puri Dham. And you think about that aspect whenever the mood of hearing, whenever Samaharas come and they talk about a pastime, and that pastime we have heard from before, some of the devotees would step out, some of the devotees would lose interest. But here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is constantly enjoying Gadadhar Pandit. It's about him. He knows everything. But he constantly hears from Gadadhar Pandit about himself, showcasing that how to have the mindset of hearing as to, even if one sannyasi in our temple comes and he gives the same pastime, but there is a different nectar when a different sannyasi gives the same pastime. And that is where we have to have that higher taste of the mood of hearing. So today is the appearance day of Gadadhar Pandit, and there is no other way I could think of as to how to culminate this knowledge sacrifice other than Gadadhar Pandit, who is so knowledgeable, but he is sacrificing the knowledge by sharing it with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So with that, I'd like to end here. Srila Gaur Gadadhar ki jai. If you have any questions or comment, we could take it till 8 o'clock. Otherwise, thank you so much for your kind attention. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Hemajaganath Prabhu, for a wonderful class. Dear devotees, should anybody would add some reflections, or questions, comments, concerns, anything you'd like to discuss, or any questions, please open up. Yeah, I mean, we have time. The point which you were making, Hemajaganath Prabhu, about the Max Muller Max Muller was actually employed to translate or distort, I mean, the right word says distort the Vedic knowledge in Western world, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. Uh, and that should not be the mood of our knowledge acquisition. And that was specifically cited here because once Jayadratha Maharaj was also mentioning in New Vrindavan in his Srimad Bhagavatam class, there is somebody who came, joined ISKCON, and after getting initiation, he wanted to use the ISKCON concepts in his master's or PhD thesis. And then he left, he didn't stay back. So our intent is not to understand Krishna as a bookish knowledge with this is what I know. There are many people who know more than all of us, actually. They can sing. And Max Muller, as you said, Prabhuji, was he just wanted to understand it. He actually spent a lot of time in analyzing the scriptures, but his intent was so different. And that is not what our intent should be, our goal should be.
then Max Muller distorted the actual Vedic knowledge and
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
his own
Absolutely.
interpretations,
Yeah.
and actually trying to kind of getting more supremacy on on the Vedic culture
Yeah.
than than the actual purpose of understanding the Veda.
It's true.
Yeah, that we're all trying to, you know. Then he said that you know the Britain conquered India once. Now there should be a second conquer again with education, with this
Yeah.
that is on ideas of interpreting the Vedas. I mean, one of things he mentioned about that the Indian Vedas and the culture is actually mixed with European culture. It came from Europe, and these are all distorted ideas that
Yeah.
in order to have the supremacy, Indians are originally from Europe, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. Anybody else? It was wonderful actually. In the 15th chapter, Lord says that we should cut. I mean, Arjuna asking this question, right? How do we cut the material bondage? The only way we can cut this material bondage by the weapons of knowledge, the weapons of knowledge, the transcendental knowledge. The Lord is also mentioning in 13th chapter that the one who understands, one who has come to at least on the platform of transcendental knowledge,
Mhm.
he can get liberated.
Yeah.
He can get liberated.
Yeah.
So that important. Yep.
So,
Anybody else has anything to add? Any reflections, comments, questions, concerns?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
okay.
Just wanted to thank everybody who's sharing their knowledge with us to cut our material bondage. Thank you so much. All of you who are taking out time to give these classes and sharing your knowledge. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Don't have words to thank you. Actually, words are not enough. Thank you, Haribol.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji, for attending for so long, and the questions, the encouragement, but all glories to Srila Prabhupada, who really made it so clear through these teachings. Thank you so much. All glories to Guru and Gauranga.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Haribol.
Anybody else? Anything to add?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one question. We were discussing about Max Muller, that he was appointed to misinterpret our Vedas. So, I'm just wondering how, we already had that Vedic base. Was it so weak that they were able to, manipulate the Vedas, and we got influenced by the manipulated scriptures? I mean, what was it that actually broke our strength, our foundation of all the Vedic knowledge? Because our ancestors may be having that knowledge, but why were they not able to, share that knowledge, versus Max Muller came from outside and he was able to contaminate it?
Yeah. So thank you, Mataji. This is a historical question and a question which might have different answers. But there are one or two key challenges we must admit, which is my personal reflection to your question, and others will have. But Indians, over a period of time, even during Vedas, for example, in this, Shankaracharya, he revived Vedas from the Buddhist. But going back to the 16th, 17th, 18th century, we had a tremendous amount of caste system in our society. And as this is a historical question, uh, we will use our historical knowledge to answer. So there was a lot of caste system, and there was a bit of a division in the society, and the so-called upper class uh, Brahmanas, they were misusing the system, and Britishers have found some of these key people who have who are weak links in our cohesiveness, and they have exploited it actually. So they have realized that the temple is the place where every village goes in the morning and evening. So if I really come up with a way in which I can put in some information which can kind of derail the thing, it will create a lot of instability. And that's exactly what happened. So they found the caste system was there, and they found some weak links through which they percolated, and as termites, they have messed with the thing. And in order to do that, it cannot be done by force. That's the reason why they got the best people like Max Muller, who's so bright, he can understand Sanskrit. And so we have to recognize to what degree they went to really unshackle us by through a spiritual, because that was binding everything together. So that's my quick answer. But others may have very good answers. They're well-read Prabhus and Matajis in this forum. But this is a very this question can go on for a long time, the answering the question. So if anybody would like to share and open up, it will be good discussion.
Yeah, that's true. Mataji, initially, Vedic knowledge was concentrated much on the higher class of the people in the society, especially Brahmin classes. And it was, of course, and it was in Sanskrit. Every part of India was not at that time. Everybody was not speaking Sanskrit. It's actually mixed up with a lot of other languages. Like I would say, due course of time, even Tamil was the language which was, standing its own. Malayalam was the majority of Sanskrit and the combination of local dialects, and Maharashtra, Marathi, and Telugu and Kannada. It has some kind of Hindi has moreover the yes, it's mixed up, and it's all new languages came up, and Sanskrit was actually kind of pushed back. Everybody is now more over to how to live and the new languages and dialects, and it all came up, and then it's actually slowly, which went in the background. So then this is the time actually the British was the East India Company. They came and they was first thing they tried to do actually what is actually these Indians are more so much tied to their culture. So then they found out this Vedic knowledge, and that's their root. Everything comes from them, and they are all tied up. This is actually generations of generation they are following it. So it's originally it is from the Vedic text. That's the time Max Muller employed to understand and how this knowledge can be interpreted and utilized in order to establish their supremacy. So only way, otherwise Indians are not going to listen to them. So they started to manipulate, and they said, this language and this origin and the root, and this they came up with a theory of Aryans, the Aryan Indo-Aryans. Aryans came from the Central Asia, and then it's mixed up, and before that the Europeans came, and it's all mixed up. That's why we have this mixed color of the people in India. So many things they brought up, and they some extent they victorious on that. Then Max Muller said that only way that we can conquer them, start the education. So they started the English education. So that's pretty much in North India, it was so profound, the English education. Every school and everything they started, and through the English education, they actually injected this concordant idea, so that if you look at the last generations of, we say, like our parents, or our parents, the last generations, those people, the people are more over in the 200 years of the age. They're completely confused with all this. That's where all these new ideas came of this communism. There's so many isms came. But people before that, they were very strong on it. They knew it. But the moment they started all this, and what they could that, this is all came from other countries, other parts of the world, is all same, that this and this. They put in such a way that they kind of made that poison in the minds of Indians, and everything. So they are actually succeeded in some extent, started this English education and putting down all the Sanskrits. Even Sanskrit language is considered as one of the best language, and even it is said that best for the supercomputer chips. And the supercomputers, they use the Sanskrit language, the logic and the meters of Sanskrit language for the supercomputers. So many our astrology, astronomy, and Ayurveda, and so many Vedas, which has complete knowledge in it. And so many actually Westerners and even the scientists were utilizing this Vedic knowledge, and then they came up with their own. It's ours actually, and mathematics was so high in India, and structural language, kind of mathematics and chemistry, and so much. His all was there, but they looted everything. They looted, and yeah, the reason for that, it was not profound because of that the culture or the language variances in various part of the dialects and the language, and then the medieval centuries, it's all kind of neglected, and also selfishness was there. Don't give it to others, and things like that. And yes, we also had a lot of faults. Because of that, it's kind of everybody took advantage of it. Otherwise, that's why Srila Prabhupada put that as it is. The same Sanskrit knowledge, wonderful knowledge, which translated as it is. See that simple and understanding the Bhagavad Gita. This the same understanding was there before, but it's called a dark age in the history of India. It's called dark age. So this dark age period, everything was kind of hidden and buried, and nobody knows what exactly happened. But the history before was there, and after that there was after because thereafter, there is a medieval period, it was kind of destroyed everything. And then we know that Mughals came before the British. They pretty much destroyed everything. People were afraid. And it was mentioned that those time Aurangzeb, the sacred thread of the Brahmins, it was like 200 kilograms. You can imagine that 200 kilograms of sacred thread of the Brahmins. That means they killed that many of these people, and so many persecutions, and everything was kind of destroyed and it's completely changed. Yeah, so many things happened during this history. Yeah, then English came and they also their own, and it's kind of completely we came up to this one and everybody's confused. So many things, so many ways, and so many things. And so now we are actually, by learning this Bhagavad Gita, we are actually learning the original, that Vedic knowledge.
Yeah, thank you for this explanation. Really, sad to know this dark part of the history, but the bright side of the tunnel is that we are here connected and learning all the Vedas through ISKCON. So really fortunate to be on this platform, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Srila Prabhupada really wanted to put that effort, wanted to do that, the Vedic knowledge. And what we are learning is really the Vedic knowledge, the real knowledge, that we can see it.
I wish they start all the Gurukuls and everything again so we can actually graduate through Vedas and, acquire that kind of knowledge again officially.
Yeah, the current Indian government started some initiatives and they started to apply in, to revive the original Vedic, knowledges and apply it to the various libraries and part of curriculums and all. Even Gopi Parnadana Prabhu, and that's what is exactly Bhaktivinoda Thakur was trying to do, revive all this original Vedic text. And Gopi Parna Prabhu in Vrindavan was tried to recover all this original Vedic text. You know that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Tiruvattar, originally found they were hiding actually. These original Sanskrit texts were hiding because of these various. Tipu was there, so Tipu Sultan, and those people, they were hiding in various places. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu excavated this Brahma Samhita from there and manuscript, and then that's why we got this Brahma Samhita. We got only one chapter of it. There are so many other chapters of Brahma Samhita, but we got only 5th chapter. And if you look at Gopi Parna Prabhu, actually excavated and collected lots of Vedic text and translated in English. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur tried a lot to bring back all of this. And even Indian government is recently started. Even, I was surprised, even which country, Saudi Arabia or somewhere, they started to teach the Ramayana and Mahabharata and Vedic knowledge to the children. Because they understood it's nothing to do with the religion, but this is highly transcendental knowledge. It's very helpful. Yeah. Very good.
Any other comments, Prabhuji and Mataji?
Anybody else has anything to add? Okay, so then if there is nothing else, and as mentioned that today is a very auspicious day, the appearance day of Sri Gadadhar Pandit. Many of you know that when it comes to the Panchatattva, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Advaita Acharya, Sri Gadadhar Pandit, and Sri Srivas Thakur. is known as Pancha Tattva, is considered as one entity. What is that one entity? Pancha Tattva Atmagam Krishna. It's a principle, Pancha Tattva, 5 principles. The root of this Pancha Tattva, this 5 principle is Krishna. Pancha Tattva Atmagam Krishnam. Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam. Bhaktavadaram Bhaktakyam Bhakta Shakti. So Gadadhar Pandit was Bhakta Shakti, the potency, the Bhakta potency, the Bhakti potency, Bhakta Shakti. Of course, the potency of Radharani Shakti. Shakti is also always as the feminine aspect of Krishna. So that is Gadadhar Pandit. So in order to assist in the Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radharani appeared as Sri Gadadhar Pandit. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is both a combination of Sri Radha and Krishna. Nityananda Prabhu is Lord Balaram, original Balaram. Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu and Sadashiva combined. And Srivas Thakur was the Narada Dev. So this is the Panchatattva. Srivas Thakur as a devotee. Gadadhar Pandit is Shakti, is Radharani. So this is Krishna, Panchatattva. It's so wonderful to understand deep into the existence of appearance of Sri Gadadhar Pandit. Very big role, played a very big role to propagate the Sankirtan movement, Sankirtan Yagya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appointed as a Kshetra Sannyasi. Gadadhar Pandit wanted to follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always. It's not that Gadadhar Pandit want to involve in preaching movement or no. Gadadhar Pandit want to personally take care of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Inseparable. Gadadhar Pandit couldn't separate from the Lord. One day, Sri Gadadhar Pandit followed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was about to leave to Vrindavan. So Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu followed for quite a long distance. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not allowing. No, you don't need to come. You don't need to come. But Gadadhar Pandit was insisting to go with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At one point, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that, yeah, you cannot come anymore. So you have a purpose, you have a different purpose, you know what it is. So you should take care of the deity of Gopinath as Radha Gopinath. You should take care of the deity. And Gadadhar Pandit was very intimately taking care of the deity of Sri Gopinath. And there is a lot of things to say about the appearance of Tota Gopinath deity over there. It came from Vrindavan. It's manifested from Vrindavan, this deity. So beautiful to know. So then, entire life, Kshetra Sannyasi, entire life, Gadadhar Pandit was serving as an instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whenever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to see Gadadhar Pandit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come to Tota Gopinath temple and take personal association. And the first thing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to hear the Bhagavad Gita, Sravanam, hearing from Gadadhar Pandit. And it is mentioned that by the tears of Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu, Gadadhar Pandit, by the tears. Those times we know that it was a manuscripts. Bhagavatam everybody doesn't have. It's not a printed copy. It's a manuscript copy of Srimad Bhagavatam by the tears of Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu. The lines and the words of Bhagavatam was not even able to see it. Only Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu knew it. Because of the tears, most of the pages were kind of very much, kind of broken, faded away. But still, Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu could, whichever the topic, Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu could read it. And such a beautiful, and when Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu start to read the recite the Srimad Bhagavatam, everybody would join. Everybody would join. Mr. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say, go on, go on, go on, go on. It's so nice that we are so fortunate. It's not so long ago. We can hear, realize the deep relationship of the Lord and his devotees. So that's what is the entire purpose of all this, to understand and realize the relationship, establish the relationship. So that's what it is, a human. Yeah. So it's so nice. Anybody has anything to add? Anything else to add? Especially on this. There are a lot to say, but it is a time, we'll stop here. Amurdanda Prabhu, anything you would like to add?
No, Prabhu. You and Hemajaganath Prabhu explained it well, both Gadadhar Pandit and especially about Max Muller's disservice to knowledge. So that was very nicely explained. Thanks, Prabhu.
Okay, so there is nothing else. Then, Prem Sarovar Madaji, are you there? And you want to add something?
Yes, Prabhuji, I am there. So, Gadadhar Prabhu's pastimes are really amazing. Like specifically when we enter Tota Gopinath, we get a different vibes. Last time during our Bhakti Charu Maharaj's last retreat, myself and Mamta Mai Mataji and few other devotees had a chance to visit Tota Gopinath with devotees. So that day was a nice day of, I think, Vyanjan Dwadasi. That day, actually, Josadama used to prepare around 500 items and offer to Krishna. So in the same mood, carrying like mood from Dwapar pastime and then mood of Gadadhar Pandit and Nityananda. So in Tota Gopinath, they prepared all items over there. And there, I heard a beautiful story when Nityananda came, how Gadadhar was preparing, how Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu prepared a nice feast very quickly for Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Absolutely, that time when Nityananda came, he didn't have anything in the Tota Gopinath temple to cook. So Gadadhar Pandit had Nityananda got some beautiful rice, and that was kind of aromatic. So Gadadhar Pandit cooked that rice. He didn't have salt. So what will he do? He ran to the seashore nearby. He got the sea water and cooked in that. Then he plucked some tamarind leaves and prepared saag. When everything is offered, he is offering to Gadadhar, offering to Tota Gopinath. Immediately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is appearing there. That Gadai, you are eating with Nitai and you are not calling me. So it's a beautiful mood, like showing Radharani is offering to Krishna and calling to Krishna. And Nityananda in the mood of Balram is present over there. So everybody, by looking at this, Gadadhar Pandita is crying, and in that nice mood, he is offering everybody, and whoever is over there, everybody took Mahaprasad, and they were so happy. So when I heard this pastime, it was I could feel the vibes of Gadadhar Pandit, in particular that temple itself. So just wanted to share this.
Yep. Very nice. Anything anybody else has to add? Yep. This is so wonderful, so nice that discuss the appearance and the pastimes. This just by hearing it, actually, it purifies us, gives us the transcendental knowledge, understanding. So that we need, continue to hear that purifies, that we can at least situate in that spiritual realm always. That's real Krishna consciousness. So hearing is very important, as Hemajaganath Prabhu mentioned in the class, hearing. It's all starting from hearing. We also heard that's the same in the morning, Bhagavatam class, hearing. Everything starts from hearing. Yeah. Okay. So if there is nothing else, then let's call it off. Is that okay? Yes. Good. Vancha kalpatarubhasya prabhasin
Pasindu evacha
Dhidanam
Patanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo
Krishna
Veda
Prabhu
ki
ki
jai,
Jai,
Bhagavad Gita ki jai,
Jai,
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you,
Thank you,
Hemajaganath
Prabhupada.
Prabhu.
Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Thank you, everybody.
Raghunath Pandit ji ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Hemajaganath Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Jai Prakash Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandot Pranam. All God
Pranam.
Shri Prabhupada. Jai.
Only you and me. Okay, we'll wait.
Yeah, it's 8:29 early, so we have
Yeah.
fine. So we start at 8:30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as always, it takes at least 2-3 minutes everybody to join.
Yeah.
So how is Maharaj doing?
I was doing fine. I was doing fine. Busy with as usual. So many meetings, so many home visits,
There is home visits.
too many programs. Yeah, but still goes on. Same
Better,
schedule might change.
maybe it's better to it's India is so worse now.
Yeah,
I think
yeah. Doing from his room only. He doesn't go out even for the
Oh.
Pankajanga Prabhu's
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, that's better.
He just
right?
did from the top.
Yeah, maybe Zoom and
It's a big problem.
yeah, Java.
Too much complication on that too.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Yes, so yes, Prash Koji, yeah. Let's
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I just joined.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hello,
Dandat Pranam Hare Krishna Prabhupada.
yeah.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanat. Hare Krishna, Jai Prakash Prabhu, Dhanat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Are we